Let me begin by wishing all the teachers in the audience a very, very happy Teachers' Day. So, indeed, it's a great pleasure. And actually, I would like to thank the VITM for asking me to talk about my teachers and my mentors because this gave me an excellent, occasion to look back. And that's why I have called this Remembering the Teachers and Mentors in a Life of Science. We are celebrating today the Teachers' Day, and these conveners asked me to talk about the teachers and mentors who influenced my journey on the path of an academic life. Now, when I look back, and because of this, I started thinking and I looked back at my life in academics, and I realized that there are three different stages where the teachers and the mentors have played a very important role in my life in my scientific career, and I think they play an important role in the life of a person in a scientific career. So, what are those three in my mind? One is the school education. The second is the graduate education, where one makes some hard choices about, the academic career and life because these are intertwined somehow. Then the third one is early stages in a career in science, when one is trying to stand on one's own 2 feet and create one's research niche. This comes right after PhD. And then, for a few years, maybe you have to establish yourself as an independent scientist, not somebody working with somebody under somebody's guidance, but your own person. And in addition to all this, one's future journey in science also get influenced by watching senior colleagues whom one respects and how they conduct their academic life. I will try to use this opportunity to talk about people who I think have influenced in all these four different ways. First, it got me thinking about my school days. When on Teachers' Day, those days, and this is 1960, time from 1962 to 1968 when I was in high school. And there on Teachers' Day, we celebrated it by running the school. That is, each one of us role played one of the teachers, and I think we mostly just had fun by copying their specific styles of talking, specific way of teaching. Not much else, but it was a lot of fun. But when I started thinking more seriously about how that life and those teachers impacted in my choice today of a life in science where I find myself, and also the way I conduct it, I found that there was a lot of impact. And some of the experiences that I had then may not have directly taught science, but certainly they did play a role in preparing one for an academic life. So let me try to share that with you. So there are four different experiences from school that I'm going to share. One is preparing for the state scholarship examination in my seventh class. And in fact, my first steps in science followed from that state scholarship examination. So I will spend a little more time on this than the others. But then I also used to participate in a large number of debating and elocution competitions and the positive impact of that in my life in science. Then the reading habits that were inculcated and nurtured by teachers, specifically by taking a lot of pains. And last but not the least, an experience that I want to share with you about how I learned how one should treat students as equal members of the educational community. Then I will follow it up with experiences in college as well as in IIT. There I will talk about two mentors. One was a professor, he's still there. Both of them are luckily, I think I've been very, very lucky that most of the mentors that I will talk to you today are still around there. And it's a great pleasure to hear from them once in a while on the occasion when I got my Padma Shri or the occasion when I got my French order. Hearing from them, talking to them, and getting their blessings all over again was an experience that I truly cherished. So, one is my mathematics professor in my college, M.R. Railkar, and one is my theoretical physics professor in IIT, Professor S.H. Patil. And that was not enough. I needed and got, I was very lucky to get a lot of encouragement and support in my academic career in the early part thereof, as well as people who taught me by their example. And those are two people I would like to mention is Professor Abbas Rangwala, who was the head of the department in University of Bombay when I was a faculty member there, and Professor N. Mukunda, who has been my colleague at the Indian Institute of Science for a large number of years. But even much before that, I knew him as a shining member of the Indian theoretical physics community. So let me try to go one by one. So let me begin at my school experiences. I went to a school called His Highness Chintaman Rao Patwardhan High School. This school by itself is a pretty iconic school. The school today has finished 137 years. It was founded in 1884. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, it was the first English school. So it used to be called Female English School for girls. And I have taken a picture. This must be 1965, 1964, or maybe 760. I think 64, 65. And you can see this is a picture of some of the teachers who used to teach us. And you can see here, for example, these women wearing the traditional 9-yard saris. And here was the headmistress who had newly joined them. And there was a big to-do and hoopla about it because she used to wear a 5-yard sari. I'm just trying to tell you this to give you an idea of the period of the time that one is thinking about. And here I have circled pictures of five of my teachers. This is the headmistress about whom I would talk much later. This is whom I used to call my friend teacher or teacher friend, and I will talk about her also later. In this slide, I wanted to mention and talk about these two teachers. One is, her name was Shakuntala Gundi, and other was Nitsure Bai, as we used to call them. These were, I went to a Marathi medium school, so I didn't have Nitsure ma'am, but I had a Nitsure Bai. So these two teachers, science, she was teaching us science, and Nitsure Bai used to teach us mathematics. Then there is, what happened was ours was a complete girls' school, all girls' school. And as I said, with this glorious old tradition, but with the old tradition also came very old practices. So till the 7th grade, our school used to teach us only home science. And there were no classes, no courses in general science. And in the 7th grade, there used to be a state scholarship examination for which maybe, few thousands, maybe I don't even know, 10,000s maybe would apply. And maybe there were 10 scholarships that would be given by the state government. They were very, meager scholarships. I mean, you would laugh. Some of the students in the audience would laugh. It used to be 4 rupees per month, but then the school fees was 5 rupees per month. So the scholarship was more of an honor than actual financial help. And somehow nobody from my school ever got it, simply because there was a paper in general science and none of the students had ever learnt it. So somehow in the year I was to appear, this was in the 7th grade, and this must be 64 or 65. And I went to my teachers like Gundi Bai, Nutsure Bai, and one more, Sohoni Bai, who used to teach me mathematics. And these three teachers and some more also actually took classes on the weekends, Saturdays, Sundays. And these women, of course, they were full-fledged housewives, and I could see it must not, now that I can imagine, must not have been easy week after week, every Saturday for 4 hours to sit with us, me and maybe a few more friends. And I remember that they helped us worked with us to prepare for this state scholarship examination. And indeed, as luck would have it, I got it. And that was the first year that a student from my class, from our school, got the state scholarship examination. And at that time, my mathematics teacher, Mrs. Sohni, I am showing you a picture of my science teacher and math teacher, Mr. and Mrs. Sohni. So Sohni Bai, as I used to call her, she suggested to me that her husband, Bhau Sohni, as we used to call them affectionately, and she said he is a science teacher, and I think you should come home and learn science from him, because I want to show you that not only that we had only science for the last 3 years, and that science used to be taught by the only, I think there were only two male teachers, three male teachers perhaps. Maybe he was the registrar, I don't remember. These two male teachers, and this was a teacher, a science teacher who used to teach us. But somehow she felt that I needed a broader exposition, and she asked me to come home and start talking to Sohni's sir, or Sohni, Bhau, as we used to call him. And Bhau in Marathi actually means brother. So he had that enormous affection for all of us. And I can remember till I think some of the early lessons about what a teacher ought to be, I got from him. And I got some very early lessons in science. I learned what it is to do science and what it is to study something, not do science, but study science, which was outside the textbooks. And I think he got me introduced to participating in science essay writings. Then, as a result of that, I remember learning new things about nuclear power, nuclear reactions, nuclear bombs. Then there used to be a Marathi magazine, because I was in a Marathi medium school. I could not read much English at that time. He directed us to a magazine which used to be called Srishti Jnan. And I think all my friends who, even if they don't know Marathi, they would understand the meaning of this word, because it's the same in Hindi or Sanskrit. And I learned a lot of things from such simple things at that time. So really, he was responsible for my taking first steps in the path of science. And it's really amazing that I can really pinpoint it to one person like this. But then, of course, that was not all that we learnt in school. There was this another teacher whom I would like to remember today, and her name was Chandutai Sathe. She, okay, that as one of the things was that she was single. She used to bring up, she had brought up her brother's family, but she didn't have, in that sense, she didn't have her own children, and she looked upon all of us as her own children. But she taught us something very important. She didn't teach us only the subjects, but she taught us about the, how one should follow one's own star. And that was something. She taught us about integrity. I learned from her how to be true to myself. And to be honest, that had stayed me in very good state in my life as a scientist. When I wanted to achieve something, I really had to ask myself, am I capable of doing this? And if others are saying I'm not capable, I should be true to myself, what I think, what I believe in. And I think she's the one who taught me, who inculcated that self belief, that integrity in me. And at that time, I even remember my younger sister could sing very well, and that she could recognize in the class when my sister was asked to sing a poem. And at that time, she actually sent a message, asked my mother to come and see her, and said, you should give her special instruction in music to this daughter of yours. She sings very, very well, and she should develop it. Now, these were the kind of teachers that I think I was very, very lucky in having them. A second experience, as I told you, I was also wanted to talk to you about teachers who helped us, to help me participate in my debating and elocution activities. And that was Super Paranspe, as I would call her, or SP Paranspe, as it's written here in English. And she was the one we used to call her as my friend teacher. I have taken a picture here from, I couldn't find a picture where I and her, we were sitting together. But many a time she has directed and helped me in preparing many a debating and elocution competitions. And we have had such photographs where we won some of the competitions and got shields and medals. But I think more than that, she taught me to study, how to study a subject and then present it logically. Something that helps me today in my career as a scientist. Even more important than that, she also inculcated the habit of reading English literature in me. She was young. Her eldest daughter was about the same age as my youngest sister. So there was not very much of a, that way age gap. And I remember through her, I saw how it's it that a woman who is very energetic and who is very committed to her career would try to balance life and life at home, family and work. And I remember many a times going to her house to prepare for some talks or borrow some books. And I think I became really a part of that family. In fact, the family connection actually continued much further. She became even a family friend. And my mother, and this is my mother, who started teaching at the age of 43 in the same school from where I had graduated 7 years before. And she and her, they became colleagues. And there is now a very big personal relationship between families. My youngest sister is actually a very good friend of the eldest daughter of my teacher. So these kind of friend teachers who helped me develop my personality, I think I owe a lot to them also. Then there was yet another one. There was another teacher called Malti Vaze, and she was actually the second teacher apart from Superanspe, who actually helped me and encouraged reading habits. And she used to ask us to help arrange books at her home in summer vacations. Little did we realize that it was just a ruse to get us to read those books. But I think again from her, I learned a lot about how one should be conducting one's academic life and the integrity that one should. My discussions about my school will really not be over unless I talk about the headmistress of our school, whom I showed you. And she was our headmistress. And as I said, she joined the high school perhaps the same year that I did, namely 1962, because 1958 to 62, I was in the primary school. She was the inspectress of girls' schools for the Maharashtra state before she joined the school, and her subjects were English and education. In one of the few years that she had been the headmistress, she actually gave a subject for the English essay competition for the students in 11th grade or maybe 10th grade. I don't remember whether I was in 10th or 11th. And the subject was reforms that may be made in my school. And she herself was a bit of a reform to the old school. Remember the photograph I showed you? So this was we used to have a school magazine, and I have and the essays which got prize would be published there. So here was yours truly, Rohini M. Godbole, and I had written an essay called "Reforms That May Be Introduced in My School." I think I was pretty incorrigible as a young student, and I made suggestions left, right, and center. And one of the most important suggestions came from the experience I had had with learning science. So I said, I have just produced a few excerpts from that article. Our school has been teaching domestic science from the fourth standards, fifth standards. It is correct that girls should know domestic science to make themselves good housewives. I accepted that. But however, my practical experience is that this was a great handicap for me in my high school scholarship examination. And then I went on to say that our knowledge in general science was totally inadequate. So I said, I don't suggest that the domestic science should not be taught, but I suggest that the general science should be taught to enable us to compete better in the high school scholarships and SSC examination. Then I went on actually to suggest that many of my friends complain that they don't have rooms in the house to study. I am very lucky, but I feel for my friends. If they can study in our library, it will be a very good thing. Now, having written things like this, when she called me to her office, I was a bit worried, but she sat me down and she discussed all the suggestions one by one. And in fact, all the suggestions that I've told you on the earlier page and some more that I had made were actually implemented by my school. The students started studying general science along with somewhat reduced home science from the fifth grade itself. Science laboratories were renovated. They were pitiful. And I think, I don't blame them. They had not realized that this is something that the girls need to get ahead in. And the minute that was pointed out that we need to be able to be competitive, I think the school teachers took it completely in good stride and did everything that they could do to prepare us in science as well. And I remember at that time suggesting, again in my arrogance, that the school should start an English medium division. It's not a very good idea to study in mother tongue. Then again, she was education expert, in fact. So she explained to me that there is a difference between acquiring competence in a foreign language for expanding the horizons of one's education and importance of education in the mother tongue in the early days. So what did, I think I learned from her very important lessons about education, and more importantly, how you treat students as equals beyond a certain stage. I think I was either in the 10th or 11th standard at that time, and she treated me as an adult and at the same time clarified matters that I did not yet know much about. So I would forever be thankful to all these teachers that I'm telling you about, who some of them were directly responsible for setting me on the path of science. Some of them were indirectly responsible, directly responsible for setting me and teaching me values of an academic life. Then there is this one teacher, and her name is Bapat. We used to call her Bapat Bai. And she actually, I still remember, when I won the state scholarship examination, I was 10 years old. I used to explain many things to students all the time. People would ask me questions. And she saw me in the school recess explaining some point about mathematics class or physics class or whatever it was. I don't remember. So another student asked me a question and I explained it to her. But then she called me afterwards and she said, it was very nice that you teach your other colleagues and students in the class, but please make sure that you are humble. You should not be showing off. And that's a quality, that's a lesson I think I have remembered for all my life. So these are the people who helped me get into a life of science and get me into a life with integrity. When I left school, it was not clear to me what I would like to specialize in. I knew I wanted to do a PhD. I had joined science stream. I had also got the National Science Talent Scholarship, which is the counterpart of today's KVPY. And somehow in this period, I think I absorbed much more from my student friends in the NSTS summer schools than actually, from the college and the lectures. And they excited me about science quite a lot. But I should mention one very significant influence on me in this period, and that's Professor M.R. Railkar. He, in those the 2 years that he taught me mathematics, he brought out the beauty that the subject, inherent beauty that the subject has. And actually, I almost decided to do PhD in mathematics. And this was more than teaching theorems, more than teaching one, set theory, which was the big thing at that time, and set theory was learned in colleges. But I understood from him the beauty that a theoretical subject can have. And from him, I learned or felt what it is to fill the pull of science. So this was the first step for me, which sort of told me that this is what I want to do. And the 2 years in IIT Mumbai were extremely important for me from the point of view of fixing the direction of my future journey in science. And one of the most influential figure is my teacher, Professor S.H. Patil, or SHP, as I used to call. We all used to call him. And I think he helped me to begin to see the beauty that theoretical physics has. And that is where I decided and chose to do PhD in this subject. He truly cared for all of us, and he loved teaching all of us whatever he knew, and he understood many concepts, subjects in theoretical physics extremely thoroughly, and he conveyed it to me. He had a wonderful tact about how to how to teach you to learn something on your own. In fact, I still remember there was a exam. There used to be, we were only 17 students, and there was an exam, and he had given a problem, and where if you got the point, you would finish the problem in about 20 minutes. And if you didn't get the main point, even the whole 1.5 hour will not work for the exam. That was the only problem in the exam. And I remember I sort of finished it in 15 minutes. And I see all my 15 students, co-students sitting and scratching their heads. And I was very worried. And then he told me, if you have finished it so soon, you have done it correctly, go. He had this enormous ability of judging a student. And I think many of my classmates and generations that followed have benefited from him. He was actually awarded the Best Teachers Award by the Indian National Science Academy. And a very large number of his students from IIT Powai are important part of India's theoretical physics community, and I don't think it's an accident. I would really like to pay my tribute to this great teacher on this Teacher's Day. This is SHP and some of his ex-students who all of us had gathered together to pay tribute to him on his 65th birthday, telling him what we were doing. The other last, now I'm coming closing stages, mentors in the early stages of research career. And this is in my Mumbai University. As I told you already, beginnings are tough times in a scientist's career. And this is sometimes, different. This is actually different from other professions where there is not much of an apprenticeship. I mean, you get your degree as an engineer and you start working as an engineer. But here, you do research under somebody else's guidance, and it is these early years when you are asking questions. Am I cut out to do this? Can I think of my own problems which will be interesting enough, which will be solvable, and which will be interesting for the rest of the community, and which will contribute to the progress in the subject? Now, the senior colleagues who provide necessary moral support and mentorship play a very, very important role. One may not do science with them, but their advice and their help can be invaluable in the progress of the scientific life. And I would like to mention my senior colleague, Professor Abbas Rangwala, at this time in this context. He was too a great teacher, and in fact, a recipient of the INSA Best Teachers Award also. I seem to be associated with great teachers. I had the good fortune of being associated with these great teachers. He could have been my teacher, but was not, because I did my MSc in IIT Mumbai. But I count him among my teachers and mentors because he gave me enormous support in my efforts to continue research in frontline areas in not so easy circumstances. I still cannot remember his kindness in sharing his lecture notes that I joined in November, and I was supposed to start teaching a course on mathematical methods. And this kind person actually gave me his lecture notes and said, you need not follow it, but you can prepare your own lecture notes using this. It will give you give you an idea at what level you are supposed to teach this subject. I really learned a lot about how one should conduct one's academic life from his example. And I think his support was absolutely essential for me to navigate my early research career, which was not exactly smooth sailing. So again, I would like to pay my tribute on this Teacher's Day to Professor Rangwala. Last but not the least is the one person I would like to mention is Professor Mukunda, who was my senior colleague at IISc for decades. But I knew him much more before, quite a bit much before I came to IISc. In fact, he showed a great confidence in me by asking a very inexperienced me. I had not even taught for 1 year in my life till then, entire 1 year. I had just finished a postdoc, and he asked me to give lectures in a rather prestigious school which he was organizing. And I can tell you, the confidence he bestowed in me did wonders for my self confidence. And that was a particular time in my professional life where I was somewhat short on that self confidence. To me, he has been a teacher by example, by showing me what a scientist should be like. And I try in my life to follow him, but I'm sure I'm woefully short. In the world of science, people can be your teachers even if you don't directly interact with them much. And in the end, I would like to pay tribute to one such teacher of mine, Professor Steven Weinberg. He passed away on 26 July 2021. He was a Nobel laureate in physics and a consummate teacher. He wrote a large number of textbooks, actually 7, and many, many popular books. The most famous popular book that many people yet might know, and once upon a time that was the book, if you wanted popular book, if you wanted to learn about cosmology, and that was the first 3 minutes, as well as the Dreams of Final Theory. He was slated to give an undergraduate course in the fall at the age of 88, but he passed away in July, so which means he continued teaching till the last minute. I, among many, many others, spent our lifetime working on physics of the Standard Model, which was put forward in the work for which he had received the Nobel Prize. I learned supersymmetry, a subject in which I wrote a textbook, from his lecture notes, and decided to jump into the subject of supersymmetry phenomenology because of a paper he wrote in Physical Review Letters. Scientists like him, teachers scientists like him, do not happen often. And teaching also has its rewards. Students writing to you from lands of art and saying, Can I please have those lecture notes on a particular topic? Now I have started teaching it, and I found the way you had taught it to us was very clear. I would like to follow it. Or you meet a student either in Netherlands, in China, in Germany, and Japan, and they say, some Indian student who is in Germany suddenly tells me, "Oh, I listened to this lecture you gave in IIT Kanpur, or set of lectures you gave in IIT Chennai." Or somebody says, "Oh, lectures you gave in CERN school." Clearly, those are very rewarding. Those are very rewarding experiences as a teacher. But I think there is yet another very, very big reward, and that was enunciated by Steven Weinberg himself. As is natural for any academic, when I want to learn about something, I volunteer to teach a course on the subject. And I think this sums it all up, that teaching rewards teachers as well. So happy Teachers' Day all around. Thank you very much.